They thought if they shouted loud enough, my words would vanish. They thought if they slammed the doors, my voice would fade into the wind. But I tell you now, I still have a dream. No wall built by human hands can stop a truth born in the depths of the soul. There were days when the noise was deafening, when lies rolled through the streets like thunder, trying to drown every whisper of hope. And in those days, they thought the storm would be enough to silence me. But storms pass, and when they do, the earth remembers the rain. Every time they told me to be quiet, I still have a dream. I felt the ground beneath me tremble with the footsteps of those who had been silenced before. Every warning, every threat only made the words burn brighter inside my chest. And when you carry a fire like that, it will find its way out. I still have a dream. They thought if they closed the doors of opportunity, the echo would die. But a voice like mine does not live in halls of power. It lives in the hearts of the people. And the people, the people, cannot unhear the truth once it has been spoken. I remember the faces of those who look to me in the shadows, their eyes saying, "Speak for us," when we cannot speak for ourselves. And how could I be silent? I still have a dream, knowing that my words might be the bridge between despair and deliverance. I still have a dream. How could I lay down the weapon of truth when I had seen its power to shatter chains? They told me my voice was too dangerous, too unsettling, too bold for the comfort of their order. But comfort is not the cradle of change. It is the coffin of it. And so I refused their comfort. Tomorrow I still have a dream, because I had already buried too many dreams in its soil. Every time they tried to silence me, I found another way to speak. When they cut the microphones, I used the street corners. When they closed the meeting halls, I turned the open sky into my cathedral. I still have a dream, because a voice born of conviction does not need permission to be heard. It does not wait for an invitation. It writes its own. And the moment it speaks, I still have a dream. It calls forth courage in others who thought they had none. They tried to bury my words beneath headlines and accusations. They tried to twist them until they were unrecognizable. But truth has a sound that cannot be mistaken, and it will rise again. No matter how deep you bury it, I have walked through nights where the air itself felt heavy with fear. I have spoken in rooms where every face wore the mask of judgment. Yet even then, my voice found its way, cutting through the dark like a blade of light. And if my voice trembled, it was not because of fear, but because of the weight of the moment. still have a dream, because I knew each word might be a lifeline for someone drowning in silence. And if a lifeline must be thrown, it must be thrown with strength. They could not silence me, because my voice was never mine alone. It carried the prayers, the cries of the weary, the cries of the broken, the songs of the hopeful. And when you carry a multitude within you, your voice becomes more than sound. It becomes a force. They thought victory would come when my mouth was shut, but they forgot that my voice is not just in my lips, it is in my life. I still have a dream, and a life that speaks cannot be silenced. They thought silence would tame you, that the absence of sound would break the will within you. Tomorrow, they thought if they could quiet your voice, they could quiet your spirit. But silence is not the absence of power. It is the space where power is sharpened, where conviction is carved deeper into the soul. You stood in that stillness, not as one defeated, but as one preparing to rise. You felt the weight of the quiet pressing in, and instead of letting it crush you, and you let it mold you. Every moment without a word became a moment of gathering strength, storing energy. Tomorrow I still had dream. Holding back tight that was destined to break. There were days when the world refused to listen. I still have a dream when your voice bounced back against the walls of indifference. Days when no one leaned in, no one heard the truth you carried. But instead of fading, you learned to speak differently, not with desperation, but with an unshakable certainty. I still have a dream. You learned that silence does not erase truth. It only delays its arrival. And when truth has been held back, when it has been damned and denied, its release is not a whisper, but a flood. You became that flood. Hey, they mistook your stillness for surrender. Tomorrow, I still have a dream. They thought your quiet was a sign you had nothing left to say. But within you, the words were forming, growing sharper, more undeniable, like the seed buried deep in the earth, hidden from sight. You were becoming something that could not be ignored. You were rooted in patience, in purpose, in the knowledge that when your voice emerged, it would carry the weight of every silent moment you had endured. And oh, how they tried to keep you hidden. How they tried to keep you hidden. Mother of the fire before it found air. They built walls of doubt, hoping you would stay small behind them. But what they did not understand was that walls are not prisons. When the spirit within them is unbreakable, you did not need to shout to prove your power. Your very existence, your persistence in the face of silence was already speaking. Still have a dream. There came a time when the silence no longer felt like an enemy, but like an ally. It had refined you, stripped you of noise and distraction, and left only what mattered most. I still have a dream. It taught you how to speak in ways that pierce deeper than volume ever could. Your words became measured, deliberate, impossible to ignore. I still have a dream. You no longer needed to fight for space. In the conversation, the truth you carried made its own space. And when your voice finally rose, it carried not only your own story, but the echoes of countless others who had been silenced. You spoke for the unseen, the unheard, the overlooked. You gave language to their pain, to their hope, to their fight. Tim, all have a dream. The same silence that was meant to erase, you became the foundation of your voice, making it stronger, steadier and unshakable. You understood that some voices are not meant to blend into the noise. They are meant to stand apart. I still have a dream to stop the world in its tracks. You were born to be one of those voices. Every attempt to hold you down only proved the necessity of your rise. Every hand that tried to cover your mouth only confirmed the power that lived in your words. Even when no one was watching, you were preparing. Even when no one was listening, you were becoming. And now you carry that voice not as a weapon of anger, but as a beacon of truth. You speak with the weight of the journey, with the depth of the silence, and with the certainty that you were never meant to remain unheard. It began quietly with a truth that lived deep inside you, small enough to hide, yet too powerful to ignore. At first, it was a spark only you could feel, a light flickering within your chest, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. You carried it through days of doubt, through nights when the world seemed too dark to hold on to anything bright. But even in those moments, your truth refused to die. It burned steadily, reminding you of who you were, even when others tried to convince you otherwise. They told you to dim it, to bury it, to keep it hidden, to bury it beneath the weight of their expectations. They said the world wasn't ready, that your voice was too much, your vision too different. But truth is not meant to be buried. It is meant to burn. And when it burns, it does not burn for you alone. It calls to others. It reaches into their shadows and dares them to find their own light. The day you finally let your truth out, it did not come as a gentle glow. It came as a fire. I still have a dream. It spread through every word you spoke, every step you took, every act of courage you chose. Still have a dream. It lit paths where there had been only darkness. I still have a dream. It warmed those who had grown cold from years of silence. And it reminded the weary that there was still something worth standing for. At first, some resisted. Fire makes people nervous because it cannot be controlled. They tried to put it out with doubt, with criticism, with fear. But fire that is born of truth cannot be extinguished by lies. The more they tried to smother it, the more it spread. It leapt from you to those who heard you, those who saw the glow in your eyes and felt the heat in your words. One by one, they began to carry sparks of their own. You realized that your truth was never meant to stay with you alone. It was meant to ignite something greater, something that could not be contained in one heart, one life, or one moment. Each person it touched carried it forward, passing the flame to someone else. What began as a single light in the darkness became 1,000 burning torches. And those torches began to change things. They illuminated injustice where it had been hidden. They revealed lies that had been accepted for too long. I still have a dream. They lit the way for those who had been wandering without hope, showing them that they were not alone. The fire gave people courage to speak, to stand, to fight. The dream, it gave them the power to believe in their own strength. You had not set out to start a movement. You had only decided to be honest, to live your truth without apology. But truth has a way of multiplying. It inspires, it emboldens, it dares people to imagine what could happen if they too refused to hide. And soon the fire was no longer just yours to carry. It belonged to everyone it had touched. There were moments when you looked out and saw the flames burning in places you had never been. I still have a dream. In the hands of people you had never met. Your truth had traveled farther than you ever could. It had crossed boundaries, broken chains, and awakened voices that had been quiet for too long. The fire you started was no longer just a light against the darkness. It was a force that pushed it back, and in its glow, people began to see clearly. They saw themselves not as powerless, but as bearers of their own flames, capable of lighting others. They realized that one truth, spoken boldly, could change the course of countless lives. Your truth had become more than your story. It had become the story of everyone it touched, woven into their battles, their victories, their hopes. And as the fire continued to spread, it carried with it the reminder that even in the coldest, darkest nights, a single spark could be enough to set the world alight.